Why is there a pause whenever you land an attack in Smash Bros? Like right here. This attack lands, but the game freezes for about 3 frames. This seems completely counterintuitive. Fighting games are supposed to be fast-paced, thrilling, never-ending combat. And yet here we are, pausing fights. Well, what if I told you this seemingly counterintuitive pause mechanic is one of the most important features for fighting games? And what if I told you those 3 or so frames are one of the big reasons fighting games feel so satisfying? First though, we need to answer a really important question. Is the pausing that happens intentional? The simple answer to that is yes, absolutely. And the industry even has a specific name for it: Hitstop. The biggest reason Hitstop was added to fighting games was because it made those games realistic. See, think about how collisions work in real life. If you punch a heavy bag or swing a baseball bat, your weapon doesn't just effortlessly glide through your target. Instead, the exact millisecond impact is made, everything slows down. There's a sudden violent drop in speed, because objects in the real world have mass, weight, and density. It's just basic physics. But in video games, mass and weight don't actually exist. A 3D model of a character or a sword doesn't have any real physical substance. It's all just code in pixels. Without developer intervention, a character's attack will just go right through an enemy's asset, without any feeling of impact. And that's because there's no natural friction. It's like cutting through warm butter. And that was a massive problem for early fighting games. Because without any visual resistance, landing a punch feels the exact same as missing entirely. Everything becomes floaty, fake, and completely unsatisfying. Since developers can't make the controller in your hand physically stop when you hit an opponent, they had to solve the problem visually. They had to invent artificial weight. This is exactly where the idea of Hitstop comes in. Instead of your attack just gliding through an enemy, developers make the game stop or pause for just a few frames. This makes it so that you can really feel the impact of your hit. It gives characters and their weapons a sense of heavy, realistic weight, making it effortless for your brain to register hits and damage the exact millisecond they happen. But how this is actually executed in the game is really important, because if the pause is too short, then attacks will feel weightless, like they have no impact. But if the pause is too long, the game will feel laggy and sluggish. So what's the perfect middle ground? Well, let's look at Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. In Smash, a hit registers the exact millisecond a player's hitbox enters another player's hurtbox. The moment that contact happens, a few things follow in sequence. First, the attacker and defender freeze completely in place, and specifically the player getting hurt is frozen mid-animation in a flinched pose. The pause doesn't make the attack do less damage, or change the move's frame data, but it does extend the visual length of the attack. And like we said before, this makes the attack feel more impactful. Now really pay close attention to how subtle this frozen state really is. Both the attacked and the attacker are only frozen for just a few frames. It's just fast enough to where we barely notice the effect, but just slow enough to where we still feel the impact of the attack. It's perfectly calibrated to make the combat feel incredibly satisfying. But that perfect calibration isn't the only thing that Hitstop does. To push the impact even further, developers also add more juice to really make it perfect. And one of the most critical elements, which we kind of already touched on, are the animations of the attack itself. During the freeze, the attacker is locked at the absolute peak of their strike animation. Meanwhile, the defender stays in their mid-damage animation. This acts as another way to confirm an attack's success. On top of that, developers also add explosive particle effects. And crucially, the more effective an attack is, the more interesting and intense the particles are. A light jab might just cause a tiny spark, but a game-ending move causes a massive screen-filling explosion. This makes it so that not only can the player tell if an attack landed, but also to what degree the effectiveness of the attack was. While these visual effects aren't necessary for Hitstop to function, they drastically enhance it regardless. While everything we've talked about explains why Hitstop works so well, this mechanic also brought along some other benefits. First off, that tiny pause, despite only being 3 frames, gives players a chance to react to what's happening. It gives them a split second to process their options. Do they commit to the combo and keep attacking? Or do you shield and back off? By giving the brain time to think, Hitstop allows for actual real-time strategy in an already fast-paced combat game. But the subtle freezing also lets developers make weapons unique. By adjusting the duration of the Hitstop, they can completely alter a weapon's identity. For example, if you want a hammer to feel heavy and devastating, you can simply extend its freeze time. But if you want a pair of daggers to feel quick and agile, you can keep the freeze time incredibly short. Hitstop gives developers tons of versatility. It gives them another way to dictate how a weapon feels, without having to mess with the actual game's physics. Hit stopping is one of those mechanics you rarely ever think about. It's a really subtle effect that practically goes unnoticed by the average player, and yet it's completely vital to the fighting game experience. Without it, fighting games wouldn't feel nearly as heavy, realistic, or satisfying. They wouldn't feel like fighting games at all. And any mechanic that is simultaneously that invisible and that important is a mechanic absolutely worth talking about. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm out.